Thank you for joining us again. We're in chapter 11 this weekend of Stories of Great Christians. And today we're going to be listening to close to the end of the story of George W. Truett. Here we go.
Our friends everywhere with Chapter 11 of Forced to Preach, the life story of George W. Truett. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians, and is brought to you by the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago.
Although the ship that George missed by minutes was torpedoed as it sailed from Ireland to England and sunk, with everyone on board drowned, George came through his 6 months overseas ministry to American World War I soldiers without injury. At last he was back in Dallas with us, and working twice as hard at his church. The next 9 years sped by. 1927 came, and George had baptized more than 3,000 in his 27 years with the church. The membership had jumped from 700 to about 4,000, and the church had given about $1 million for missions. Somebody said that George Truett was the only Dallas skyscraper that the city of Houston ever envied. Then, in 1927, at the Southern Baptist Convention in Louisville, an old college friend came to visit him in his hotel room.
I wonder whatever happened to old Deacon Carey over at East Waco. George, I can still see you standing at the door of my room saying, "And so Deacon Carey says we got about 100 members, but I'll tell you this, our building's too small for 'em."
Yes, and it was.
Well, it was a lot more crowded when you got through being their preacher.
Yeah, those are good people at East Waco, Jim. Joe and I sure loved them.
Sure you did. You love everybody, George. I think that's why God has used you. George, I didn't come over here to reminisce.
Well, I'm disappointed, Jim.
I was sent over here.
Now I am disappointed.
Sent by a board of managers.
Now, the Southern Baptist Convention? Uh-oh. That sounds as serious as a lynching, Jim.
It's a board of managers and the nominating committee.
Oh?
To warn you ahead of time. No, I don't mean that, George. They want me to ask you, more officially than unofficially,
If we could hold a convention in my church next year? I know you efficient planners.
No, George. To ask you to serve as president of the Southern Baptist Convention.
No.
That's why I was sent here.
Why, that's preposterous.
It's a high honor.
Well, I know that, but Jim, it's just not for me.
Why did you say that, George?
But Jim, you know me. I'm a preacher, not an administrator.
Yeah, you administered that church in Dallas till it's one of the biggest in the country.
I preached, Jim, and God blessed. Other people administered. Why, Jim, you know, I've squirmed my way out of more chairmanships. Why, I don't want this. Why, this kingly role as president? I'm a priest, a prophet, not a parliamentarian, and I want it to stay that way.
Is that your answer, George?
I think so. Yes, it is.
Then I'll say this. I'm glad to hear it. George, I admire you. We all do, for your preaching. Why, there isn't an orator like you in Texas. We praise God for your evangelism. You got a rare gift of loving people right into the kingdom.
But you don't think I could administrate our gigantic convention? Or even handle a very orderly business meeting? Now, that's the truth, isn't it, Jim?
Well, I think you'd be wasting your talents. I'd hate to see a magnificent preacher flop as a mediocre gavel pounder. And George, most of your best friends agree.
Frankly, Jim, you know, a lot of convention meetings irritate me. Waste of time.
I know you feel that way. George, I'll be honest. Some of us think that this office might be an embarrassment to you. It might, well, detract from your reputation as a spiritual leader.
Jim, thank you. I don't know what you'll be telling your nominating committee, but you made my decision a lot easier for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an honor to welcome to this platform to introduce to you the next president of the Great Southern Baptist Convention to serve the year of 1927, the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Dallas, Dr. George Truett.
Fellow Christians, from my deepest heart, I hope this honor would never come to me. I did not want it. I tried to refuse it. But I will do my level best, with God's help, not to disgrace this convention. If the gentleman in the balcony does not desist from his speech-making, we will have 3 motions on the floor at once. None of them will be valid. Sir, do you wish to make a subsidiary motion? If not, please take your seat. I want to thank you, gentlemen of the religious press, for joining me to breakfast. I believe no former president has ever communicated his intentions for the year to our denominational editors. And this morning, I intend to do just that. Since there are no more outstanding committee reports, we shall proceed to the special committee reports. Are there any special committees?
He said he couldn't do it. Well, the priest and prophet has turned king.
Hello, Dr. Truett speaking.
Truett, for pity's sakes, where are you?
Well, right where I belong, the parsonage of the First Baptist Church of Dallas, Texas. Where are you, Dr. Rushbrook?
Where you should be, Toronto, Canada. Or is the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Dallas too busy to remember that the Baptist World Alliance is meeting?
Not at all, not at all. I'm leaving here, but not till the last minute. I'm to skip the first meeting and...
You can cancel those plans.
What's that?
Truett, President Mullins is ill.
Serious?
Yes, that leaves the Baptist World Alliance stranded here in Toronto, Canada, like some forlorn orphan child. I demand that you get up here on the next train and preside in Mullins' place.
Baptist World Alliance? Why, I can't, Rushbrook. Your good British sense ought to tell you
My
that...
good American neighbors tell me that a Texan can do anything, if he prays to God for the strength. Well, Truett.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yes, George was a Texan now, just as Texas as oil wells and summer sunstrokes. But even though he came from the biggest, the most Baptist state in the Union, it didn't mean that he lacked a vision of Baptists all around the world, preaching the gospel, working for God. So in 1930, after George finished with the convention presidency, we took a trip to South America to visit Baptist missionaries in Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile. And we attended the very first Latin American Baptist Congress in Rio de Janeiro. George came home with wider horizons than ever, and somehow it seemed quite logical that in 1934...
Dr. Truett speaking.
Truett, this is Rushbrook.
Well, Rushbrook, where are you?
Why, I'm in London, England, where I belong.
Good. Well, I'm in the parsonage of the First Baptist Church of Dallas, where I belong.
I know where you are. I'm calling you, Truett.
Yes, Sir Rushbrook.
They're going to offer you the presidency of the Baptist World Alliance.
Are they really?
You'll accept, of course.
Now, I don't know.
Nonsense. You've proved your administrative ability. You're God's man for the job.
God always has told me I'm the man for another job.
What?
The one right here at First Baptist.
Of course, that makes no difference.
It does to me. The Alliance president should be free to travel, visit the mission field, represent all the Baptists everywhere, wherever they need to be represented.
I agree.
Well, I can't travel. I'm not the man. I can't take any more time away from the church.
Of course you can't just take time away from your church. You ask them first.
What's that?
Ask them first. Ask their permission for a leave of absence for travel. Then accept. They'll give it to you.
Why, Dr. Truett, sir, you think Dallas would pass up an opportunity like this? Sir, the bigger the better is the word in Dallas. And that goes for anything the Lord's work, too. Baptist World Alliance. Oh, I ask you, Dr. Truett, sir, can you get much more gigantic and kingdom work than that? Why, of course, you take your time to travel. Why, Dallas is proud, sir, to send such a minister with such a gospel just as far as he can to preach it.
George accepted the presidency, and in 1935 he and I and Dr. Rushbrook went around the world. We saw Baptists at work for Christ in Egypt, Palestine, India, Burma, China, and Japan. In 1939 we were back home, hard at work to bring this world vision closer to people right here in the United States.
Frankly, Joe, I'm glad the Alliance is meeting in Atlanta and not Dallas.
I never knew conventions were so much trouble. Letters. But I think of the times I've gone and just stuck my little name badge on my jacket.
I hope I have the energy left this time to put on my jacket. Let's have some coffee. I can't write another letter tonight.
12,000 delegates. George, this is the biggest yet, isn't it?
I think so.
It's a good thing you found out in time that Atlanta Auditorium wouldn't hold that many.
Isn't it?
George, you still sound worried. Now, let's see. We know we can use the ballpark for the meetings. When we wrote that letter to the Australian delegation...
Joe, if every note that's sung is on tune, and every sermon that's preached has 3 well-organized parts, and if a brass band meets the president at the station, even if Time magazine writes us up favorably, the Baptist World Alliance won't honor Christ if we don't act a brotherhood.
George, this is Atlanta. You're asking for a lot.
I'm asking for the Baptists to show they're Christians. I'm asking that they treat their fellow Negro Christians like brothers, not like railroad porters.
You have the letter from the National Baptist Convention. You know the Negro delegation will be there.
Sure. But I don't know whether they'll be given seats in the peanut gallery and told they can't eat at the banquets.
You want them to sit side by side?
I do. Of course there'll be some embarrassment. We can't expect anything else. At least we can make a start. Joe, I believe in years to come, Negro children and white may sit side by side in churches on Sunday morning and in schools during the week.
In the South?
In Texas and Atlanta. In our convention, Joe. We have to testify to the world first that we mean it when we sing, all one body we. When we quote Paul about neither Jew nor Greek.
It's hard to think, George. You've been brought up differently, but I know what Christ teaches. I know you're right.
Joe, the gospel of Christ can solve every race problem in the United States. In Atlanta, we'll have to point the way. If we don't...
What, George?
Then I just might give up my presidency of the Baptist World Alliance, right then and there in the Atlanta ballpark.
We brought you Chapter 11 of Forced to Preach, the story of George W. Truett. This has been another in the series Stories of Great Christians, transcribed from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago.
One chapter to go, and tune in next week. In the meantime, Lord keeping me around, Lord keeping you around, Lord tarrying, and the Lord willing. I'll look forward to seeing you then. God bless.